Hi everybody, welcome back to the 40-day challenge, Embracing the Race. I tell you what, I'm getting this done a lot later than I usually do on a day. I had COVID clinic this morning, gave out a whole bunch more doses, and it's a rainy, dreary day, and oh goodness. But we're getting it done. Today is day 10, and the title is Hurling Off the Hindrances. And I won't lie, when I saw the word hurling, I'm like, what type of hurling are we talking about? But it's not the gross kind, I promise. The verse she starts with is Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. Let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. So her scenario that she's talking about today is how when we have a cold run or a cold race, maybe starting early in the morning, or we run Disney. I have not experienced this yet, but run Disney races, they start super early in the morning, and if those January or maybe even February can sometimes be a little chilly. We start off with more layers than we're probably going to need. And once we start running, a lot of times it doesn't take that long for us to start shedding those layers and throwing them off to the side. So she relates this to throwing off sin in our lives. And she says, a runner who's fallen into her perfect stride isn't going to slow down, prance over to the side of the road, and neatly lay her old sweatshirt down. Of course not. Just when she notices the change in her body temperature and feels the heat inside, she knows it's time. She quickly peels off the cumbersome sweatshirt, tugging furiously to get it over her head, and with all of her might, fling it as far away from her as possible. And so she relates not just the scenario, but how quickly we are to, just get rid of those layers that we don't need. That when we recognize a part of our life or a sin or a temptation or anything like that, that we know shouldn't be there, we shouldn't just, be wishy-washy about it. We should throw it off just as quickly as we can, recognize it, reconcile it, ask for forgiveness, and move on. She talks about different things that could be like, let's see, get down here. Selfish thoughts, prideful action, hurting our loved ones, or we lash out in angry words, defending our way of doing things. And it can leave us with guilt and anguish that it'll weigh us down. Just like when she was speaking about the clothes, like if we leave those clothes on too long, they get heavy with, the sweat because we're wearing too much, and it just weighs you down. And runners, that's the last thing we runners want, is to be weighed down. We hurl it out of sight and into the forgiving arms of Jesus. He's strong enough to catch those sins we've thrown at him along our path. He has the power to forgive and redeem because of what he did on the cross. And then he does something incredible. He hurls our forgiven sins completely away from us, never to be seen again. What are you allowing to hinder your walk with Jesus? I've mentioned this probably a couple times, but at least once over the last few days, that what hinders my walk is distractions and time management, allowing life to get away from me without taking the time that I need to do this type of thing. And as I've also mentioned before, when it comes to lashing out down here, I mentioned this before, that when I don't have this at the forefront, I tend to be very short with people. My anxiety, it becomes quicker. I have knee-jerk reactions to things, and it's not always the best knee-jerk reactions to have to certain things. Are you clinging tightly to a certain sin? I really hope I'm not clinging tightly to it, but allowing things to distract me, definitely. Anything that takes my eyes away from where they should be, it's not something I should have in my life. Are you ready to call it what it is and throw it off? I think so. I think doing this it's helping me to stay focused on things I should be focused on. Is, getting to read all these different little things that are really fun to relate to, because I do enjoy running. And a lot of times these different scenarios, I never thought of how they could be a parallel to my faith. Ask God to show you what is weighing you down so you can cast it off and run your race in victory. I want to go back to the paragraph that I read before I did the questions. And if you hear a little dog bark, my little dog is in my lap. She talks about how Jesus forgives our sins and casts them away from us. I know that's something that I struggled with. My post-college, early adult life was choices that I had made in college, and I'd asked for forgiveness and done all that, but I was holding on to that sin like Jesus wasn't big enough to cast it away, to have it be forgotten. If he can forget it and forgive me, I don't need to be hanging on to it either. And that is something that completely will weigh you down. So if you're someone who has something like that, just realize that he died and rose again for that sin, and he forgives you and forgets, and just wants you to do that 180 and just walk the other direction towards him from whatever that choice was. And hanging on to it is completely not necessary, and it weighs you down, just like she says in this book. The verse that she closes with is Psalm 103 verse 12. As far as the east is from the west, he has removed our sins from us. So it's in his word. We ask for forgiveness. We want to do that 180, and he removes it and casts it away. So don't ever hold on to choices. Learn from them, but once you've got that lesson you've learned from it, don't dwell on it. It just weighs you down, and keeps you from that joy that you get from the forgiveness and the cleansing that his death and resurrection brought for us. So, like I said, it's kind of a dreary day here, but I hope you're having a great day wherever you are, and I will see you tomorrow.